Now I'm going to open it up to questions and answers. Or, is that right? Yeah, questions and answers. And I normally say there are such things as stupid questions. But I'm not going to for this group. As I said, if we were at war, we'd be dead. And that's probably part of the reason that I am the way I am, because of my military background. And my father didn't have a father. His father died just before he was born. So my dad decided, well, I didn't have a father, and I served in 2 wars, so we'll raise you the military way. And he did. He was hard as nails. I mean, harder than titanium. He was a plutonium, whatever. He was just hard. And, okay, first question. Give him the mic, please. Yes, sir.
Hi, thanks Dan for coming here and for inspiring us or sharing your wisdom. I'm entrepreneur and ultra runner myself from Germany, and I've read or I've heard you also participated in some marathons or ultra runs. Can you give some details on that?
Yeah.
What's the distance? What were your takeaways?
Sure. Everything I did, I didn't know I was doing this. I just did it. When I used to be a competitive racquetball player, so I used to run to get my cardio. And then I used to see people out in the runs in the morning, and so I decided that I get better cardio the longer you run. So I hooked up with a woman named Mickey Gorman, who was the last woman to win the Boston Marathon in 1977. Another American woman just won this year, 40 years later. And so I used to train with her. She was a world-class runner. And everything I did, whether I'd always pick somebody that was world-class. I didn't know that I was modeling world-class at the time. I didn't use those metaphors or those analogies. But I ran with Mickey in Boston in 77, part of the LA Athletic Club team. And she won the Boston Marathon that year. But I ran in 50 milers. I've run 50 miles in 20 hours and 45 minutes. 100 mile, 20 hours and 45 minutes. I've won 50 miles in 7 hours and 5 minutes. And these aren't, now you talk to guys, I mean, you know, I don't understand why they even run. I don't. I mean, for God, may God strike me dead. I don't understand. Why would you want to do a 6-hour marathon better you blow your fucking brains out. But now the system and the values attached to them are so low. You know, I ran 10 miles in 65 minutes, not as a race, as part of a marathon. But that's the only time I have clocked for 10 miles, 65 minutes. That's 630 miles, which is no big deal. But now, but I use that as part of the training. And most of the guys that go into nutrition, most of the guys that try to get a six-pack, most of the guys that do fitness trade, they're just wasting time. Well, to learn is that if you're going to do it, find the very, very best you can and train with them. Yeah, but see, a young lady, I'm not trying to make fun of her, but she was embarrassed to come up and introduce herself to me before this thing started because she was afraid. I was sitting there with my wife. I'm not going to bite her or hit her or slap her, although I have in years gone by. But I mean, and it's not a cultural thing. People used to tell me it's a European thing because they're more polite. That's bullshit. That's a cop-out. Your ancestors in 44 were anything but fucking polite. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, forget about it. I mean, but now you've deluded yourself into thinking that you're something less than. You're not. You're not. I mean, find the very best. The system on my site has got how do you find a mentor. It's a great section. That people look at. But they don't take the next step. How do I get the money? They don't take that step. But I mean, you find the very best you can, and then do what they say. Now, as long as it's moral, ethical, and legal, those are the only caveats I have: moral, ethical, and legal. But other than that, anything goes. You know, I've worked 4 or 5 days in a row with no sleep. And I used to drink like a fish. I don't drink anymore, but I used to drink like a fish. I also have good DNA, good genes. I mean, in my family, if you're a man, the only reason you died before your 90s is if somebody caught you in somebody else's bed and shot you. That's it. So I was blessed with good genes, but I'm not athletic genes, long lasting genes. So, I mean, find the very best. If you're going to, you know, and my system is based on finding a mentor, man or woman, that is where you want to be now. My system is based on affirmations, goal setting, and high benchmarks, high accountability. You know, I went from a class of 330 to 13. People can't believe that because I held the kids accountable. I mean, and I used to go down, and if you weren't prepared, you didn't come back to a class again not prepared. I would ridicule you, embarrass you, humiliate you, but you came to those fucking classes prepared the next time, or you dropped out. And now 12 of the 13 are all mega successful. I guess it worked, didn't it? I get letters from them all the time. Thanks for the beating, Mr. P. I used to like Professor P. I like being Professor Pena. I like that. But thanks for the beating. Did I answer your question? Okay, next question. Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Pena, I have 2 questions. One very short one. What age were you when you stopped drinking?
Stopped drinking a lot, 60.
60? Okay.
Yeah, but now, I used to be a power lifter, big guy. I was telling the young lady, and I used to weigh 135 kilos. And now I weigh about 105 kilos. So I'm about 65, 70 pounds less now. But I basically stopped drinking not because of my health, but because it's wasted calories. And the older you get, I know you youngsters won't believe this, the older you get, the harder it is to burn off calories. And so I decided that I liked being relatively thin, or not fat, more than I liked alcohol. And so, but I've been testing my blood since 1974. And I test my blood every 6 to 10 weeks. So I fine-tune my blood. I mean, I'm fit for 50. I've got blood, the tables and all the stuff for between a 40 and a 50-year-old. I also have the cardio of a 40-year-old. I'm not big and strong like I used to be.
Thank you. My second question is, what sports or specifically competitive sport do you recommend in order to get into, how do you say, for somebody who has never
Boxing.
Boxing?
Yeah, martial arts is great. But unless you're Bruce Lee, forget about it. I mean, because I don't believe in pulling punches. In very few martial arts, you really get to kick the shit out of the other guy or him kick the shit out of you. Boxing, and if you're a big guy, you should box with a lighter weight that are, not because you're going to hurt them, because they're quicker. And it makes you quick. So at 105 kilos, I would probably want to box with somebody that was 70 or 80 kilos. They could dance around me and, you know, keep me... Sharp.
Thanks.
Any other question? Here. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I have 2 questions. First of all, could you share your experience you said about regretting? So what do you regret, and what's your feedback about this regrets?
Okay, this is a 3-pronged answer. First, I have 3 regrets. One, I'm a militarily combat-trained military officer who's never seen combat. I never got to see combat. 2, the night before my mother died, I'm yelling at her, "God damn it, Mom, you're not fucking sick. You're not going to die. You're not going to die." The next morning, she's dead. And the 3rd is I didn't set my goals high enough. Not that I spend more time with the kids or none of that. That's all horse shit. Now, I've given a lot of eulogies. You're going to make a speech when you're dead, right? And I'm going to say nice things about you, supposedly, right? And beforehand, the wife comes, if it's the guy, can you do John's eulogy? Okay, John's still alive. I go to the hospital. I talk to him. And I said, "What do you want me to say, John?" And they'll laugh. And then they always, 100% of the time, they've always said the same thing. Dan, it's not the things that I did that I regret. It's the things I didn't do that I regret. It's the risks I didn't take. So somehow I got to massage that into, a eulogy. We were at a 2-day funeral a few months ago. I'd never been to a 2-day funeral, but anyway, that's a whole other story. And I wasn't prepared to give a eulogy, but then the husband, who I've known all my life, and my wife said, why don't you say a few words for Melinda? Now, Melinda was a hard bitch. I mean, tough as fucking nails. And everybody's talking about her like she's the Virgin Mary. And I tell my wife, that's not the gal I knew 50 years. So anyway, I take the mic and I get up and I do about 15, 20-minute eulogy. And I told her how it was in front of her kids and grandkids. She was hard. And after the eulogy, 3 little old women come waddling up to me, probably my age, but look like grandmothers or great-grandmothers. And they said, excuse me, sir, can we have your details? And I look at them and I said, well, I haven't done a threesome in a long time, sweetheart. But why do you want my details? He says, because we want you to give our eulogies. I'm a great eulogy giver. And so but it's the regrets the stuff you didn't do. And if your parents are honest with you, which they're not, I can prove to you in this room that at least 50% of you are unwanted children. At least, probably more. I'm just going to give you 2 tests. You answer them yourself, not out loud. It's obvious if there's 9, 10 years apart of kids. Forget, that's an easy one. I'm going to make a joke. A Polish PhD could figure that one out, right? Okay. But it's been proven that in the tummy, mommy's tummy, from the 2nd trimester on, the kid can hear voices outside. So now you come home, your dad comes home, or your father comes home from work and your mother says, I'm going to have a baby. And he says, you stupid fat bitch, will you get pregnant again? You heard it. Huh? But you still could be. It doesn't matter if you're the first child. And it's not this new game that now they get married after the kid's born. And the newest game, which kills me, we're pregnant, Dad. What do you mean? What the fuck you mean we're pregnant? Who's we're? You got a mouse in your pocket? I think that's insulting to me as a man. We're pregnant. And I'm sure some of you I can just tell by the looks on your face. Do you realize on how many fucking levels that's wrong? And you want to know why men are weenies now? Next question. No, dude, Jesus, scared me. Don't scare me.
Is it all? It's all. I'm Peter, 2 questions. First, back when you were calling and you were getting through the gatekeepers, aside from the chocolates and the flowers, how did you talk to them? And the second question...
Okay, well, stop. You mean when you're giving the chocolates and the flowers to the secretaries to get into...
When you get by the first gatekeeper, like at the registry, and then you go to the assistant.
Yeah, okay,
How
I
you
got
get
you
through
now.
those?
Okay, well, I mean, this old-fashioned crap. Now, I wasn't a flower and a candy guy. Foreplay is not my long suit. Slam, bam, thank you, ma'am, is where... That's just me. But... the kids, to get to a big guy, you have to get past the gatekeepers, right? That's what you're talking about? The gatekeepers, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd secretary that keeps you from seeing them. And flowers still work to the assistant because now you've talked to her 5 or 6 times and you haven't gotten through. And you send a little flower with a little note. Thank you for I know you're doing the best you can to get me in to see him, but thank you. And then when you actually get the meeting, you bring a little box of chocolates. It doesn't have to be anything big. And that shit works. I don't know why it shouldn't work. And if with me, it didn't work. But if you saw the movie Wall Street, the young kid on the 100th phone call to Gordon Gekko in the movie, he gets through. Back in the 90s, Bruce Whipple and I, on the 100th phone call to the CFO of Toyota America, we got through. Now, I know he was counting them, and he knows we were counting them. and persistence works. And now you can send little bouquet flower things on, I don't know how to do it, on the internet where they open it up and it's flowers. And but that corny shit works.
And the second question, when you got to the first contact with the big fish, how did you open?
Big fish.
Yeah.
You mean
The guy that you got through
we
the
need an
gatekeeper.
interpreter here? The big fish? You know, what? Pardon? Okay, important person what?
The guy you were getting through.
Okay,
to.
so now I'm meeting him, right?
Yeah.
And so what's the question?
How did you open? The
first thing?
Think in
Hi, my name's Dan Pena. Thank you very much for making time to see me.
No. Not during the meeting, during the call. The first contact.
Well, I may never talk to him. I may just get the appointment through the secretary.
Ah, like this. Thanks. That helps.
And always be the most informed in the room. I mean, I knew more about him than he knew. And always be most informed. Okay, who's the next? Yes, sir.
Excuse me, I had the second question. So you were talking about this business and starting business. What do you think about corporate? Do you feel that someone can get success in corporate level?
Absolutely. Okay, Klaus Kleinfeld, who's now the CEO of Davos in the desert. It's a startup, a $500 billion startup isn't exactly a startup, but because he's got $500 billion to spend. But he rose through Siemens, he rose through Alcoa, and then at Siemens, I was there all the time. We used to say there's a right way, a wrong way, and a Siemens way, because they're like a government. So, I mean, yes, we have many corporate examples of the kids using the QLA. The basis, you're not buying companies when you're in the corporate environment, but you're using the same measurements. You know, what gets measured gets accomplished, making your reports, the people that report to you, accountable. So it works terrific. It works terrific. The greatest startup until this Davos thing in the desert was Rick Scott, the current governor of Florida, who started Columbia Healthcare, the largest healthcare company in the history of the world. But now Davos, and it got to be about, I don't know, $30 or $35 billion company. But now the Davos thing is going to surpass that easily. The budget for the first 2 years, I'm told, is roughly 200 billions. Next.
My name is Oscar. Why did you choose Scotland to live in?
Why do I what?
Why did you choose Scotland to live in?
Because when I retired the first time in my 30s, I thought, well, I didn't think. I wanted to be near the home of golf. St. Andrews, it's just down the road. Carnoustie, some of the great golf courses. And then ultimately, 20 plus years ago, I built my own golf course because I got tired of getting in the car and driving to St. Andrews. When I tell people that, they think I'm crazy. But I got tired of driving to St. Andrews, so I built my own course. But it was golf. But my retirement only lasted weeks. I thought that I used to play 72 holes. Everything I do is to excess. I play 72 holes of golf a day during the summer. 72. Because the sun comes up about 3:15, 3:20, and it goes down about 11:30. So I just played golf, you know, like a crazy man. But I'm obsessive. You know, I'm obsessive compulsive. I mean, some people say I'm a psychopath. But listen, and this is a shitty place to say it, but Hitler was a high-performance guy. For those of you that don't know that, he was arguably the greatest speaker that's been produced in the last 1,000 years. I mean, Stalin was a high-performance guy. Tito was a high-performance guy. All these guys, see, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Just because you don't agree with their various persuasions doesn't make them not high performance. These guys were, you know, and if you knew all that I know about the current flavors of the month, some of you would be shocked. Some of you would be appalled. But where I draw the line is legal, moral, and ethical. But you can still beat the shit out of a lot of people and make them legal, moral, and ethical. There's no question about that. Another question. Yes, sir.
My name is Rafał Mazur. First of all, for helping me out without you even knowing it. Thank you. And
My life philosophy? One sentence, be all you can be. That's it. I live my life. I'm the same. At my 70th birthday party a couple of years ago, people would come up to my children, my wife, is Dan like this all the time? And the answer is yes. I'm like this when I wake up in the morning. I'm like this just before I go to bed. Every night, this is especially in a Catholic community, and I know you're not all Catholic, but I fall asleep saying my prayers every night. I'm 72 fucking years old, and I fall asleep saying my prayers. Affirmations, goals, prayers. And I have prayers for there's about 125 people on my prayer list. I fall asleep sometimes between 70 and 100. I rarely make it all the way to the end of the list. Now, why do I say my prayers every night? Because I used to kneel at my bed, just like most kids, this Catholic kid did, and I say my prayer. Now I don't kneel in my bed. Now I'm sitting in my bed. I got bad knees. It hurts me to kneel now, so I can't kneel.
And the second question is, how do we know that our goals are too low?
Well, I can just tell you they're too. I can just look at you and tell you they're too low. I mean, there's not a man or woman or child in here that shouldn't add 2 or 3 zeros onto the goals. 2 or 3 zeros onto their goals. But money's not everything. It's the only thing anybody keeps track of. But money's not everything. But I mean, you go out and you take those monies that you accumulate, and you can do great things.
Thank you, Mr. Peña, for your all pro bono work.
Okay.
And since we are in technology school and you sometimes complain that no one asks you about your failures, and you funded iZone technology hub in Philippines a few years ago, and it looks like it failed. And if so, what's
No, it didn't fail. I mean, it's just that the models that we had were people intensive and call center intensive. And we don't want to run those models anymore. And we were getting ready to leave the Philippines. But that had nothing to do with for those of you that have been online like we have since the late 90s, it's a different game now. I mean, with algorithms and Google, we used to be $100 million customer of Google. Google rather have $101 million customers now. I mean, we spent $100 million on Google advertising plus. And now, I mean, you can't, other than Ford or General Motors or somebody like that, you can't find any because the models have changed. And I have personally trained 4 or 5 of the top 10 revenue producers in Google in the world today, as I stand here on this stage, came out of my stable. And all the models, I don't understand 100%, but you don't have to understand these models 100%. See, you continue to spreadsheet this shit to death when you don't have to. Now, you know how much the big guys spend on when they're going to test a new campaign, $500. If the fucker doesn't draw traffic and $500, next. $500 in 20 minutes. $500 in 20 minutes. How many times do I have to say that? I know people in this room have been finger farting around with their models for years that have spent tens of thousands. Why? Pride of authorship has killed more deals than anything in life. You can't admit that you were wrong. What is your wife going to say? You spent our last 11,000 whatever on this piece of shit? I mean, you haven't slept with me in 6 months. I did the girls will appreciate this more. Don't touch me when you're in bed. When your husband comes to bed, don't touch me. Now, see, guys can't relate to that. Women can. What's more important, that fucking model or me? Now, I don't mean model, but I mean internet model. So, did I answer your question? Okay. Next. Yes, sir. Oh, one of the old gits.
Yes, thank you very much.
Are you as old as you look?
I'm also a kid.
Oh, a kid.
Like you.
Okay,
like
good.
all of
I'm listening. Go ahead.
When you create for yourself a dream, a goal, you get investors for your plan, but then you meet officials of government who have other dreams.
Correct.
What you do about it? What I can do about it?
Okay, well, first of all, that's not exactly how the model works. Our model works. You don't use any of your own money. You don't get investors, you put a dream team together first, based on the idea you have. Then the two biggest levers in life are other people, OPM, and other people's money. We teach you how to do it with no money of your own. Okay, now that aside, governments have their own ideas. And I don't recommend that your first deal or your primary deal be a government deal. Now, if you've got Davos in the desert and somebody's already written a check for $500 billion, okay, that's different. Then now I'm getting people asking me, can you introduce me to that $500 billion in Klaus Kleinfeld? And the answer is no, I won't. That's not what I do. Okay, but you have to see, first of all, how long is the government in? When are they going to get reelected? In other words, when are they going to shift? Like I knew Miramar, Sally and I were approached 5-6 years ago to go to Miramar to set up some infrastructure. And I knew that it was going to fall to shit, and it has. You know, they're now practicing genocide in Miramar. So although we've just completed, I didn't just complete, one of my mentees completed a $181 million deal in the same general area. But he had to make sure that the existing officials were going to be in office throughout the program's life. And you can't guarantee that. And in a lot of countries, not Western civilized countries, corruption and bribery is a big part of it. And I know that in Asia, it still is. So it's a lot harder to do. It's not impossible, but it's a lot harder. My first deal is well documented, was a $50 million government contract for oil petroleum products. But the United States government wasn't going to change between April and October. But if it was going to change, there was no election. If it was going to change, they may have not fulfilled their contract, although the U.S. government and the big governments, Canadian government and the UK government, are pretty good about fulfilling contracts, even when administrations change. It's with greater difficulties, my answer. Other question? Yes, sir.
Hi. I want to ask you, why are you doing this? Like, first of all, I thought that you want to applause and want to people attention, but now I really don't know why you train us and you just want to change our life. But
no, I don't give a fuck about your life.
Exactly. That's
I
why.
mean, if you drop dead there with a mic up your ass, I wouldn't lose one iota of sleep.
Exactly. That's what I think. So.
And I think you know. I'm telling you now. That's exactly the truth.
So why are you doing this?
I'm doing this for selfish reasons. I am currently the greatest high-performance coach that ever was born, lived, or walked the planet. I don't need that. And the numbers speak for themselves. Nobody talks about numbers because nobody's produced any fucking numbers. I am the only human being that talks about numbers because I'm the only human being that's produced any of them. And that was before the 500 billion. Now I fully believe I will be the $1 trillion man in my lifetime. I do it because I'm selfish. When they talk about me when I'm dead someday, and I plan on living at least 50 more years, they're going to talk, right now they talk about Buddha, Allah, Christ, Dan. Then they're going to talk about Dan, Allah, Christ, Buddha. I mean, Think and Grow Rich and Napoleon Hill will be a fucking afterthought. You know, there is nobody that's even remotely close. I mean, the sweat off my jockstrap is better than the next best high-performance coach. The brain cells I will lose tonight, I'm going to make an exception, I'm going to drink tonight. The brain cells I will lose tonight on the 2 or 3 double martinis I have are more brain cells than the whole fucking industry has, cumulatively, since Christ. Did I answer your question? You're right, I don't give a shit about you. Go drop dead. We've had a woman, psychiatrist, a Muslim, pass out in the seminar, crash her head on one of the beams. We didn't stop. We just kept on rolling. At the break at 10:30, they went and helped her. She wasn't going to die. It would have been bad luck for me if she had, but she didn't. So I can say that. And her twin sister was in the room, a psychiatrist. a doctor. And I mean, she fought, I'm going to go help. Stay where you are, or you're going home early, bitch. And guys and gals, this is how they are. Oh, I wish I was making it up. But this is how they are. They're ruthless bastards. And why you don't know this, I have no fucking idea. They just are. All this feminine shit that's coming out about Weinstein and all these people, that's been going on 100 years in corporate world. At least 100. It's awful. I'm not condoning it in the least. It's hard for me. I'm a big, good-looking guy. And when I was a young man and single, I got more ass than a toilet seat at a bus station. I don't understand how anybody would have to force anybody to do anything. But that's me. And I wouldn't know a condom if you threw one on the ground here. But that's me. Do you realize people, I have a mentee, Jason Capital. Anybody know Jason? He teaches you how to get laid. He charges meatheads like these two here between $40 a month and $3,000 a month to be sexually attractive. I said, are you fucking kidding me? I said it on the Joe Rogan show, and Joe said, God damn, Dan, that's a goddamn house payment. And Jason said, Dan, you and I can go on the road. We could charge him $50,000 a month. And I said, that's just what I need. My legacy to be 100 years from now. But guys, you know, when I part of my weekly report, you have to list something that scared you. Every day you got to list something that scared you. I'd really like to see what you'd list. And you know what they list? I got a girl's phone number. I asked for a phone number at the gym. I asked the girl if she'd sit and have a coffee with me at Starbucks. Are you fucking... Are you kidding me? Guys are weenies now. Look at you. I got kicked the shit out of this whole fucking room by myself. They told me I should worry about security. Not you. I said, are you kidding me? When I was in Toronto, Canada, I brought a cricket bat. And it was one of my props, and they finally came up, well, why do you have a cricket bat, Mr. Pena? And Toronto, University of Toronto is an upper echelon, top 25 school on the planet, supposedly. And I said, they said I should be worried about security from you, and I laughed, and they laughed too. And then they said, well, what do you do with a cricket bat, Mr. Pena? Now, let's think about the question. What do you do with a cricket bat, Mr. Pena? I split your fucking head open, asshole. What do you think I do with it? And then he said, when was the last time you used a cricket bat, Mr. Pena? And I said it was 2005 or 6 in India. We had an altercation, and they had 15 or so thugs roll up on motorcycles trying to intimidate me. 15 of them. Didn't work out that way for them. They had a bad fucking day. And now, if somebody spits in your wife's face, well, I'd reconsider and maybe had a bad day and I just walked the other way. Walk the other way. He just spit in your wife's face. And you'd give him the benefit of the doubt that maybe he had a bad day. And we're sitting here in Poland. The 1940, I mean, I can go on and on, can't I? That guy'd be needing a funeral. He'd need a eulogy giver. Other question.
Sir, thank you
Yes,
for
sir.
your speech. I was first.
Oh,
sorry,
I'm
man.
sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
Where
So
are
my
you?
question. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
here.
yeah, there you are. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so one more time. Thank you for your speech. My question is really short.
Well, then don't make it long. Let's go.
What are your golden rules which guide you in decision-making process to achieve success?
1,000 rule.
No, golden rules.
Oh.
Could you name at least three?
Honest, moral, ethical. That's it.
Could you repeat, please?
Yeah, honest, moral, and ethical. Everything else goes. Most of you are married for the wrong reasons. Most of you had kids for the wrong reasons. You're a product of marriages for the wrong reasons. I mean, most of you should kick the bitches, or the girls should kick the guys to the curb. Most guys now get into a relationship because they can't get laid by somebody, so they marry them. I mean, these are all the wrong reasons, kids. In case, you know, the golden rule is, you know, be all you can be every day of your life. I have a mentee who's on my Hall of Fame, and I was at Dave Asprey's, what do you call it? His, where he tells you how to get fit. Yeah, bulletproof, what's it called? Oh, no, not hackathon, biohack, thank you. I was at his biohack, and Sally and I were there a couple years ago, and he was going to interview me. And so we walked into a room, and I wanted to hear Joe DeCina, the Spartan guy, who I've been on his podcast. He all thinks you're weenies too, but let him say to do that. We got there early, and there was some shaman, some guru, some guy, chakra guy up there on the... But I wanted to get there to hear Joe and get in the front row, and he wasn't up yet, and so the shaman is going to do one more exercise. So he's there, and we're here, and he said he does some mumbo-jumbo incantations, and he says, you put your arms out like this, and so I did it. And my wife was standing here, and one of my mentees was standing here, and I'm dressed just like this, and all the other guys that are there, they're guys walking on barefooted, trying to grip the energy from the earth and shit, from the ground. So the guy's doing this, and then he says, and then I tell Sally, something happening. I'm whispering it. It's hard for me to whisper, by the way. I'm whispering it. And then I said, I can see the little shit with my eyes closed. And I don't think anything of it. And so then the kid, the mentee who's standing here, says, no fucking way, Dan, you're seeing it through the chakra. I didn't know what the fuck a chakra was. I still don't. But I could see the little prick dancing around, back and forth, back and forth. And then I started talking, and people started looking at me like I'm Jesus or something. Don't touch me, asshole, you know. Unless, well, I won't go there. Anyway, so I saw him. Okay, nothing happened. I was interviewed by Dave, very nice man. He said, you're doing all the stuff that I tell these kids to do, but you've been doing it already 40 years, Dan. I said, yes, I have. So we go out to see a friend of mine. Is on the Hall of Fame, went to one of my first seminars. His wife had died, but was brought back to life. She didn't die, okay. So, and I know Mary. So I went to see her, and I said, you got to tell me about this experience. She says, well, I dropped dead in my son's rehearsal dinner, night before he got married. I dropped dead into the dessert, with her face in the dessert. And I said, no way, yeah. And I said, then what, then what? And they tried to bring me back, We had 2 doctors there, a fibrillator. They broke a bunch of my ribs. I'm dead. So the paramedics come 15, 20 minutes later. They load her in the thing, and they take her away. She's dead. On the trip to the hospital, there's 2 paramedics, an old guy and a young guy. The young guy says, can I practice on her? I mean, she's gone. Now, I thought he was going to, that kind of practice, which happens all the time in case you don't, it's called coprophilia. But I mean, you're looking at me like I'm making this shit up. Anyway, so he gives her 3 jolts. On the 3rd jolt, she sits up and is alive, like a Frankenstein movie. Okay, now they replace her plug in her heart, blah, blah, blah. So now it's 6 weeks later, she's standing in her kitchen. And I said, what happened? She said, I knew. What did you see? I didn't see any pearly lights. She said, I saw black. Well, I know you're going to hell because you're a ruthless bitch. I know you a long time. She says, yeah, but I saw every regret that I ever had since I'm 1 or 2 years old till me dropping dead into my son's rehearsal dessert flashed by me in millionths of a second. We're all energy. So all her regrets, the things she didn't do to that moment. She says, I knew you'd want to hear that. Well, if it's the truth, she says, yes. But she says, oh, I want to show me the chakra shit. I don't believe that. So in the kitchen, with my wife standing there with a glass of red wine, I went through the mumbo jumbo again, and I did it again. And I saw her. Now, people ask me, don't you want to do it again, Dan? No. Don't you care why you did it, Dan? No. Don't you think you could help people? I don't give a fuck. I've done a lot of things nobody else can do. But me seeing through my chakra doesn't enhance. I mean, legitimately, I could be a charlatan like all the other charlatans, and I could sell you a podcast or some sort of link and to show you how to do it. But I would be a disingenuous hypocrite if I did anything like that. But regrets. Another question. Yes, sir.
Can you share with us one of the models, success story of this QLA?
Okay, QLA is very simple. There's 3 keys to QLA. One's a motivated seller. Motivated seller. They tease me by saying to a motivated seller to Dan is the wife just had a stroke, is dying, and the husband is spitting up blood from emphysema. So they got to sell the business. Okay. Motivated seller. Second thing is the existing cash flow from the business, free, unencumbered cash flow, has to cover debt service. We don't use equity. We don't use private equity. We only use debt from banks, commercial banks. So if the debt service is covered by the cash flow, it doesn't matter what business. The 2 hot industries, and they have been hot for 30 years, healthcare and telco. And right now, telco, it's cybersecurity. There's 3 or 4 that are hotter in there. Again, they're on my site. But so debt service has to be covered by free cash flow from a motivated seller. That's it. Doesn't matter. And banks would rather lend 50 million than 5 million than 50,000 because it's the same amount of paperwork. And kids, money's almost free now. You will kick yourself for not taking advantage of low interest rates. And as I predicted, the greatest transformation of wealth since World War II, Mr. Trump, all the stock markets are up. The American stock market is up almost $6 trillion. But now I'm rephrasing my prediction. It's the greatest transformation of wealth in the history of the motherfucking planet. Not just since World War II. You may not like Donald. You may hate him. But he knows how to get shit done. And the planet understands that. You don't understand what it means to do away with death taxes. No inheritance tax. You don't understand to bring corporate rates from 40 to 20%. You don't get it. Because you're peons. You got fuck all. But the guys that have money like me understand it exactly. And that's why the stock market's going crazy. It's going crazy. You haven't seen anything yet. He's done 17 of the 20 things I said he was going to do when he became president. He's only done 17 of them. What are the other 3, Dan? Bomb North Korea, bomb Iran, bomb Syria, turn them into parking lots, level them just like this city was leveled in the war. Those are the only 3 things he hasn't done yet. If you got relatives in any of those 3 countries, get them out. Yes, sir.
Before you went to bed every night, you would say your affirmations and goals and your prayers. Any other routines or habits?
No. I fall asleep with the prayers, though.
One more. Raphael, again, another question. Dan, are you doing any business, or do you do any business except for teaching? Because
No.
I mean, it's relatively
No. That's a good
small
question.
money you are making.
No. When I decided to be a coach, I sold all my stocks, all my bonds, all my real estate. I have no outside investments. All Sally and I have is cash, 100% cash. I don't want any potential conflicts. So we're 100% in you guys. 2/3 of my time is pro bono for free, and 1/3 of my time is just looking over what we have. We've sold all our homes around the world. All we have is, not all, but we have got the castle, and it's in most of our wealth is in irrevocable trusts.
Okay, so the other question is why? Because I mean, I have been talking to like 28 billionaires myself, and from what
I'm not interested in your deals.
No, I don't want to make
Okay.
a deal with you. It's just, you know, the fun of the game, of the
No,
business.
no, no.
It's,
The fun of the game is I manage 110 portfolios, 110 of you. 110 of you. I know more about, this is another commentary. Let's just say that these dipshits right here, 5 were my mentees, and they're my mentor programs for free. I will know more than each one of you on your businesses than you do in 30 days. I will know 100 times more on his, and his business in 30 days. So if I know more about their business times 110, because there's about 110 kids that I manage at once, what does that say about your real devotion to your idea? Either you're stupid, which many of you are. I mean, thick, imbecile, idiot. Somebody was trying to have me define the difference between an imbecile and an idiot. And I said, I don't know. I don't deal with any of those. But I've done it with 80 IQs to 180 IQs. The 80 IQ did a 400 million pound deal. The 80 IQ did a 40 million pound deal. Does that tell you something? The 80 IQ was a joiner, a carpenter. The 80 IQ was a master's in computer science, bullshit, yada, yada. Summa cum laude or something. You can't manage 100 businesses and do one yourself and do it well. That's why I don't do it for myself. I don't help my kids either. And there's nobody, I'm not passing the baton off to anybody. None of my kids would do this if I gave them $1 billion. My daughter would say, looking at you, why you would come and listen to my father is beyond my comprehension. Are these people sick? Do they realize what they're getting themselves into? They just think you're bullshitting, Dad. They don't know you don't give a fuck if they drop dead. We've only had one nervous breakdown this year of my kids. It's a light year. Because I drive you. You know, a horse, when you ride a horse, it doesn't give up. It rides till it dies. I ride you till your fucking arms and legs fall off. And then I keep riding you. Do you know that Usain Bolt, the great sprinter that just retired, right? The Jamaican guy. Every workout he did, until the last race, which he didn't win, right? He got a bronze medal. Every race prior to that race, he worked out until he threw up. He knew his workout was complete when he threw up. Threw up. His body was spent because he threw up. Do you work that hard till you throw up? And guess what happened? He didn't win his last race, did he? So he went out a fucking loser. After 10 years of the greatest running history the world has ever known. Because he cut back a little. I'm told, I don't know, it's not important what I'm told. I don't want to disparage the guy after 10 years of great athletic endeavors. You guys, if you get a migraine headache, you take off. If you got diarrhea, you take off. If your wife calls you to come home and let's have a little. It's not for everybody, kids. There was another. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Peña. Okay, thank you, Mr. Peña. A few quick questions. The first is, I'm Zimbabwean, and I would like to know the...
Zimbabwean?
Yes.
Okay.
The guy that you talked about in Canada, the one who was a refugee and then
Correct.
now a lawyer. Yeah, I would like to know him.
Well, you're not going to know him. Oh, one of the things, this is not a networking event. If people in my group talk to each other, they're out of the program. If I find out about it, and I do, they're out of the program. Because you don't share best of best practices. You share that your weenie's only this long and you can't put it in anything. You share all the misery, the fear, the sadness. Well, I can't go without talking to my mother. I have women that talk to their mother 15 fucking times a day on the phone. 15! That's called neuroses. No, we don't, it's not networking. Don't be trying to link face or tweet fuck any of the, I mean, they won't return it. So what's your next question?
The next one is, when studying rolling ups,
do you recommend that we start with businesses that have high grossings, as in, like, say, for example, $10 million as compared to, like, a business with $100,000? Do we start big or we start small when you're doing the rollout?
As big as your eyes are. The bigger, the better. But the first deal is the most important. Even if the first deal is only $1 million, you got to do a first deal, because then you're talking about not something you're going to do, you're talking about something you did. The banks treat you differently, your dream team treats you differently, the whole world changes. You know, they're still talking about the deals I did from decades ago, but the most important thing is we've got teenage millionaires. You know, we've got 500 billion Davos in the desert. We got a guy 2 weeks ago did 3 deals in a week. 6 million, 50 million, 500 million. Same guy, a Canadian, another Canadian. Same guy. You can't hit it for 6. That's a cricket term. Or hit a home run unless you're at the plate swinging. I'm still swinging. I mean, and these kids still swing.
Okay. Last question is Peña. Thank you. There's 50% divorce rate at the castle because we all marry and have kids for the wrong reasons.
Yep.
What's the reference for knowing that the right reasons?
Well, now, the evidence is you tell me. You fill out about that much paperwork to come to the castle. Personal questions you've never been asked before. You say it. What's your biggest, I ask you what your parents' biggest regret are. Guess what? Marrying your father, you fucking morons. Not leaving your father, hoping your father died sooner than he did. Oh, do you think I make this shit up? How do I know? You tell me. And then there's a section in the bottom of the weekly report, which is because of Lurch over there, Adam, one of my Polish mentees. He said, you know, I bet the report would be even more telling if we added this. 4 or 5 months ago? And it was, what am I not telling Mr. Peña? Fuck. I mean, that question just opened up Pandora's box.
Okay, let's give a chance to ask
guy.
questions to other people. And let's make it the last question.
Okay, last question. Out of your experience, what is the best project you came across as a coach, in your opinion?
At a college?
No, in your opinion. I mean, I'm sure you came across a lot of projects from other people, and can you classify one of them?
This sounds braggadocious, but I mean, I've never none of you kids in 25 years have ever had a deal as good as the deals that I've come up with. The best deal I ever came up with was I took an option public, something I didn't own, and I made 100 million pounds in one day. One day. And it was something that had never been done before. And so the London Stock Exchange had to make a special edict, if you will. You can't do it now, it's illegal. But then I went to the Netherlands and I did it there. And they loved it. And then they made a law that you can't do it there. And then the whole world made a law that you have to own what you take public now. But back in the day, you didn't have to own what you took public. So that's the best deal. But right now, I mean, the net is where you get the most bang for your buck. But the challenge is, see, we're building generational wealth. We're going to sell on to somebody. It's very difficult to sell any of the internet models onto somebody else because they're not worth anything other than you. And, you know, some of the great internet guys today, I train, but they have nothing to sell. Because as soon as they step away, all they have is, affiliate programs, et cetera, et cetera. And so the affiliates normally evaporate as soon as the leader, the top guy. Okay. Thank you very much, kids. Thank you.
These were amazing questions and amazing answers. Dan, don't run away from us. There's also one more thing. Sally, can we ask you for a second to come? Charming wife, Dan's wife. And
are we going to do squats now?
No.
Squats or deadlifts?
I love powerlifting, but we are going to do different thing. In
Okay.
Poland, we are polite also to make good friends,
Okay.
Dan. So this is a small thing from us.
Thank you.
For you. We have also one small thing for Sally. And also a reminder about, for you both, how it was at Polytech.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And now, Dan, if you will let us make a group picture together.
Sure.
Guys, can I invite you to make a group picture here at the stage? Thank you very much.
You're very
It was
welcome.
amazing.